How's it going, everyone? Sethphir here, and welcome back to another Tower of Fantasy video. Today is going to be my guide for the endgame Wormhole Hercules. This is a new game mode that came out recently with the level 75 increase and the Saki Fuwa patch, so this is going to be something that's giving a lot of people trouble. So I'm going to make a fast guide here today showing all of my strategies, secrets, tips, and tricks for this endgame instance so that you can collect gold dust, and quite a lot of it at that. So first, let's talk about that Saki Fuwa. It just came out. I pulled for it. We got 6 stars on it. It has been fantastic. I also pulled for a bit of matrices, and I'm going to pull for some more later on today. So in addition, with this guide, if you're looking for a full run of Hercules, you want to see me do that content and complete it. I've already reached floor or the 120 level on it. I've cashed it in for the ranking and the leaderboards. If you guys want to see that done live, I'm going to be streaming at Twitch at 1 p.m. today, so go ahead and check that out, and I usually stream on there a lot, so feel free to stop by if you want to see anything like that. So first, let's go ahead and get into it, the breakdown of Hercules mode. There is quite a lot to talk about here, so we're going to go ahead and head up to the top of the page, and we're going to go to the wormhole section and find Hercules. So this is going to be broken down into a few sections. When you first get to the Hercules mode, you will have to do normal mode, then hard mode, and finally challenge mode. After you complete challenge mode, you will be on endless, and endless is just a mode that you can repeat once every cycle, every 5 days, to get free gold dust. And I think it's something like 40 to 50 per level cleared times 8, so it's quite a lot of gold dust that you're going to be able to cash in on there. So you want to make sure you do that once every reset. So the way this is going to work is there's going to be a lot of preparation coming into this. So the first thing we're going to talk about is relics. Relics are very important in the wormhole, and I have a preferred set here. I prefer to use the Kuant and the hologram projector on the main relic set that I am going to use because of the way that the Hercules instance works, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but it has a lot of specific elemental type damage that needs to be done, and Kuant just increases your damage overall. Same with hologram projector, so whatever type of damage you're dealing, these are going to mirror that type of damage, so it's going to make them very important. Your second set can just be a pre-combat buff set that you press right before you fight bosses or hard encounters. So I usually like to keep the cube and maybe like the missile pod or something on there, as well as the space-time and the magnetic storm. So it's just something that I set up before I fight a big encounter. So with that in line, I do want to put out an honorable mention for the jetpack. It can be used to retrieve some buffs with some cheese strategies that we have going on, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that may be something you want to consider throwing on like a second or a third set, just so that you can have access to that. So now that we have relics covered, let's talk about gear sets, because this is going to be important in Hercules. The way Hercules works is there is going to be 3 instances of elemental type immunity on the challenge level and higher, so that's same with endless. It's a little bit less for hard and normal, but generally those are not too difficult to overcome, so I'm not going to really talk about that. We're going to focus on the challenge mode and the endless mode here. So there's going to be 3 immunities to damage types, so that means only one element is going to be susceptible to damage. So it's going to be either fire, physical, ice, light, volt, whatever it's going to be. So you're going to want to have multiple sets. So here I have a volt set in socket 1, an ice set in socket 2, and a fire set in socket 3. So you can go ahead and change those out and fix your gear accordingly, because you will be swapping gear quite a lot because only one element is going to do damage, so you're gonna have to cycle that out. So let's go ahead and talk about that now. The weapon strategy for Hercules and for Wormhole in the endgame is going to be quite simple. We are going to make use of the Healer Resonance Benediction. Benediction is very powerful in solo play because it is going to increase your healing by 100%. And the rules of the wormhole reduce your healing dramatically, so this kind of counteracts that and allows you to heal yourself to full, keeps you healthy throughout the entirety of the run, and is going to allow you to completely ignore boss timers. So when the boss runs out of time, even if you haven't defeated it yet, you're going to slowly start taking some damage. With the benediction trait, you can just pretend that this doesn't exist and take as much time as you want. So this is definitely an OP strategy. Having 2 healer weapons active is very important. So for those 2 healer weapons, Ideally, you want Nemesis and Zero. These are best because they have a lot of powerful healing moves and shielding moves, which are going to help you throughout the level. And the important part is that they are 2 different elements, so you can use them to check for the weakness of a particular stage or level. So now that we have this covered, we want 2 healing weapons. If you do not have Nemesis in your possession, you can of course use Coca Reader or whatever other healing weapon is available. I think only Pepper is after that. It may be a bit of a struggle with that, but as long as you have Coco and Zero, you should be okay. That will cover 2 of the elements. And then I would recommend putting a 3rd element weapon that is just different from the 2 healer weapons that you have, so that we can utilize a strategy that we're going to have going in. We're going to hop into the level and check for the weakness, or check for the one elemental type that we can actually do damage on, and then we'll come back out and we'll change our stuff accordingly. So after we have this covered, let's talk about food buffs. Of course, you can have food buffs ready. I know a lot of people kind of overlook this, but having powerful like fire buff or physical buff, whatever the weakness is going to go a long way, as well as Mia's Kitchen. So if you have Mia's Kitchen available and you need an extra boost in the wormhole, that could be an option for you. You could claim it and hope to get something that is the elemental type of damage that you're going to use here. So with that covered, let's talk about the basic strategy. So in every single level of the wormhole, there are 2 hidden buffs. 2 hidden buffs exactly throughout the level. You will be able to collect those. These are the blessing runes that you'll be able to get. So there's going to be 2 of those, and you will need to kill mobs up to 100% to complete on the top left side. That will allow you to clear the stage. You can do this by killing big elite mobs, which is preferred because they also drop blessing runes. And at the end, when you have a little bit of percent left, if you gather up a bunch of elite mobs at the same time and you kill one of them, it's going to instantly defeat the rest as long as you have damaged them, and you'll be able to collect their buffs as well. So this is a really good strategy to have really high levels of buffs, which will be very, very important for clearing Hercules mode. So now that we have that covered, there's one final mention. There are timer clocks in the level hidden throughout. There's quite a few of them. I don't know exactly how many, but you will need these. If you see them, pick them up, because Hercules mode can take some time to whittle down some of these enemies. It can be very difficult. So now let's talk about the target weak points. This is going to be the first and most important thing. As we talked about before with the normal mode, the hard mode, and the challenge mode, it is going to vary. It's going to be different. So in normal mode, they're going to have resistances to elemental types. In hard mode, they're going to have 2 immunities, and in challenge mode, they're going to have 3 immunities. So that means only 1 type of damage is going to work. And in addition to that, you will see a different type of weak point, which will be like maybe they take more melee damage, or maybe they take more damage to the shield, they have more shielding, but they take more damage in general. Whatever the buff may be, this section is going to change. It's going to change a lot, and there's going to be different results as the wormhole go on. So make sure to keep that in mind, because you're going to see a lot of these buffs be changing, and that's going to change your strategy. So go ahead and plan accordingly. So if you have a melee weapon of a particular element, that's going to be nice to use in this particular instance. Now that we have the target weak points covered and we have checked those, we know what we're dealing with, let's talk about the blessing runes. Blessing runes are very, very strong, and you can pick the wrong one. This is where a lot of people make mistakes. I would recommend clicking on the blessing rune section at the bottom of the screen here and reading what each of the runes does. Runes generally have a static bonus and then a 4 and an 8 piece bonus. So if you can manage to get 4 or 8 of them, they will have an extra increased effect. And not all of these are equal. Some of them are very powerful. Some of them are absolutely useless in terms of progression going forward. So the best ones that I know of are going to be the Heart of Thorns, which is listed up here. Overclocking Program is very, very powerful. Shadow Burst is also incredibly strong. Devouring Sun is good as well. And then there are several that are not listed here. So things like Blood Rage, which increases your critical damage but lowers your crit, is an incredibly powerful tool to clear the level. Infinity Blade, which increases your attack if you get the 4 set and the 8 piece bonus at the cost of health, which is going to be fantastic for our healer strategy every time you cycle a level. So these type of buffs can carry you through the entire instance of Hercules completely, so picking them is going to be very crucial. The priority is generally going to focus on things that give percentage-based damage boost. This is going to be the best thing that you can get. Things that proc for abilities might be alright, but if it adds any sort of percentage-based damage boost, you are going to be getting a lot of value. Because not only do these come with that boost, they also come with like a lot of attack power slapped onto the beginning of it, so you can multiply all that with these percentage-based boosts. So here in this particular instance, I would prioritize taking things like Heart of Thorns, which is going to have a ramping effect, and this is one you may want to prioritize a little bit earlier. Same with Infinity Blade, because it takes some time over the stages to really ramp up and stack up its effect. And then there are solid ones that just happen when you complete them, like Shadow Burst, which is very powerful, giving you crit rate and crit damage, which is the same as final damage, so that's going to be really strong. And then it's also going to give you things like Overclocking Program, which is just a static 40 to 60% damage boost. So the priority is going to be percentage-based damage boosts. After that, you want to aim for crit rate, and then after that, you can look at elemental attack in a particular area. So you have things like these Frost Attack that has something special attached to it. It can be pretty good as well, and you have some generic like attack boosts that will do like something like stun or make you jump higher or something weird. There's all kinds of stuff. So if you can ever pick attack, it's always going to be good. There is a couple other ones like supercomputing, which allow you to increase your dodges by a lot, so you can do some like niche strategies that can be very powerful. But I do want to mention that you should be very careful with the flame buffs, because a lot of time they make an explosion and that actually hurts you too. So if you're ever doing a run and you're wondering why you're just all of a sudden getting chunked by HP, that's probably because of like Shattered Star or something like that. So just be careful on that, because you will blow yourself up with these fire abilities. So just take note and make sure to be a little bit cautious. So now that we have Blessing Runes covered, we know that we're going for percentage-based damage boosts, attack boosts, and crit boosts, and then prioritizing anything else after that. You're going to have to choose between the best that you get when you pick up these buffs, so just go with what you feel is best and aim for those big ticket items like Infinity Blade, Blood Rage, Overclocking Program, Shadow Burst. Like, all of these are going to be very, very powerful, because the name of the game is to increase your damage so that you can survive the encounter. Because remember, whenever you increase your attack, you're also increasing your healing, and if you have those up so high, you enter this spot where you're just kind of invincible. And a lot of times this is harder to accomplish at the beginning of the run, and as you get towards the end of the run, you're going to have so many buffs and bonuses compounding on top of each other. You're going to feel so much stronger than you did on level 5-1 or 5-2 or whatever that may be. So now that we have those covered, we're going to talk about our general strategy here. So our general strategy is going to be to hop into a level with 3 different elemental type weapons, and we are going to check for the weakness on the monster. So here we have an example of that. As you can see here, we now know that the monster's weakness is physical because it was immune to everything else. So we will then switch out here. We will switch on our physical set of gear. We will switch on a physical carry weapon, so something like Shiro in this instance, and keep our 2 healing weapons. And then we will enter back into the instance once we are fully prepared and swapped out for everything that we have to swap out. And then we will go ahead and clear that floor. And it's going to change on each floor, so keep that in mind. When you go to 5-2, it's going to be a different weakness. It can be the same weakness multiple times in a row, so if you're lucky, you can save some time like that and not have to switch. But as you move up the floors, every time it's going to shift and change, so make sure to take note of that. So that's going to be our main strategy. Make sure to take note that you can also have a cheese strategy, which I'm going to show you. You can knock monsters off of the ledge with skills like Zero's 1 skill, the shield that pushes monsters, as long as they don't have a shield on themselves to ignore that push, especially those light-weighted monsters like the Wraiths and stuff like that, and the commanders. You can push those guys off the edge, and there are a lot of monsters that will charge you, so you can get them to charge off the edge. So let's go ahead and see an example of that, because it's going to be very important. You can use that to save time instead of killing them and go down and collect their buff below the level. You can use that with the jetpack, or you can just simply jump down there and keep spamming the collect button and dodge and hope that you get it, whatever route you want to go. So let's go ahead and see that. All right, and as you can see, we had the monster just run himself off the edge. He defeated himself for us, and all we would simply do is maybe equip our jetpack. You can change, you can just jump down there, and if you had that equipped, you can pick that up, or you can just jump down and collect it manually by trying to dodge or aerial attack or whatever the case may be, spamming the button. So make sure to keep in mind for that. Another really strong strategy, like we talked about before, was when you're about to hit the final % of getting to the next level, gather up a group of multiple elite monsters and focus on one, kill him, make sure the others are hit so you can collect all of their extra blessing runes. And this is going to be a very powerful strategy because this is the name of the game with Hercules. You need compound buffs in order to succeed here. You need multiple instances of Shadow Burst, multiple instances of Overclocking Program, and if you can get a couple of these to 8 stacks, you will be highly successful in the boss encounters. Speaking about the boss encounters, the ideal strat is having that double healer strategy so that you can ignore the boss timer, you're not pressured by time, and you can just slowly take your opportunities and whittle the boss down. There's no big rush. Just make sure you heal yourself to full and avoid the fatal and strong moves that the boss will cast continuously. Not all bosses are created equal, some are harder than others, but you'll sense an ebb and flow of how the fight is going to go. And with the strong blessing rune or buff management, by choosing the correct choices, you will hit these bosses really hard. Especially if you manage to get like 8 stacks of Blood Rage, 8 stacks of Infinity Blade, you're probably going to be deleting these bosses within a minute flat, depending on how much gear and attack power you have within a given element. That's going to be the most important thing here. So now that we enter this part of the end game in Tower of Fantasy, we do see a strong demand for multiple elemental weapons. We see this with Sequential Phantasm, we see this with the Wormhole now on Hercules mode, and we are also going to see it later in the future with the upcoming in-game activities that we're going to be getting as 2.1 draws closer. We're getting closer to Lyn and some of the other hard in-game activities. So this is really exciting things to look forward to, but it's going to involve players creating strategies and diversifying their weapon roster, which is going to be important in part about the end game. Alright, that's going to be pretty much it for this guide. I hope that this helped you out. I will be streaming live on Twitch today, so if you want to check me out doing the Wormhole, I will do it live. You can check the Twitch VOD if you miss it, that's okay as well, twitch.tv/Sethphir. Make sure to stop by. I will show you how to implement all of these strategies. I will show you how to clear all of this, and we can definitely get some good stuff done here. So hopefully everybody has had some great luck pulling for Saki Fuwa. I'll also be pulling for her matrices. I'm going to continue that later on today, so I'm going to be pulling for the rest of those, so stop by if you want to see some juicy pulls. We also got some viewer pulls going on later in the day, so it should be a good time. Alright, that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for your time and watching the video. I truly appreciate that. If you found it helpful or useful in any way whatsoever, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and we will catch you in the next one.